My mother-in-law poured something strange into my drink when she thought I wasn't looking. I'm Adrian Cole, 32 years old. Wildlife and documentary photographer. I've spent weeks in blinds photographing grizzly bears in Alaska. I've documented great white sharks off the coast of South Africa. I've captured images of venomous snakes in the Amazon that most people will never see in person. But nothing in my career prepared me for what I was about to witness at my mother-in-law's birthday dinner. Patricia Winters handed me a crystal glass filled with amber liquid. "Special cocktail for my favorite son-in-law," she said with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Her hands were trembling. Just slightly. The kind of detail most people would miss. But I'm trained to notice things others don't. That's what photographers do. We see the world in frames. In moments. In details that tell the whole story. I thanked her. Took the glass. And watched her eyes follow it as I brought it toward my lips. That's when I saw it. A faint film on the surface of the liquid. Catching the light from the chandelier overhead. Almost invisible. Almost. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. Because what happened in the next 45 minutes changed everything. I didn't drink. Instead, I discreetly switched glasses with her husband Richard, who was scrolling through his phone, completely oblivious. The same Richard who'd spent the last 3 years asking me when I was going to get a real job. The same Richard who never remembered my name at family dinners. 45 minutes later, Richard collapsed at the dinner table. And Patricia's face went white when she realized what I'd done. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you how we got here. Because this story starts long before that birthday dinner. It starts with the woman who decided I wasn't good enough for her daughter. And it ends with me destroying her entire world using nothing but a camera and the patience to wait for the perfect shot. I met Maya Winters 4 years ago at a marine conservation fundraiser in Manhattan. She was an environmental lawyer working on ocean pollution cases. I was there because my underwater photography was being auctioned to raise money for coral reef restoration. We talked for 3 hours. About the oceans. About the damage humans were doing. About how my photographs could tell stories that legal briefs couldn't. She understood why I did what I did. Why I'd spent 2 weeks living on a boat to capture a single image of a whale shark. Why I'd rather document the natural world than shoot weddings for triple the pay. We were married within 18 months. Her parents were another story entirely. The first time I met Patricia and Richard Winters was at their estate in the Hamptons. 10,000 square feet of colonial architecture surrounded by manicured lawns that probably cost more to maintain than most people's mortgages. I showed up in khakis and a button-down shirt. Brought expensive wine. Smiled. Shook Richard's hand firmly. He looked at my handshake like I'd offered him something dirty. "So you're the photographer," he said. Not, "So you're Adrian," or "Nice to meet you." Just the photographer. Like that was my name. Like that was all I'd ever be. Patricia was more subtle. She smiled warmly. Complimented my work. Asked intelligent questions about composition and lighting. Then, as we were leaving, she pulled Maya aside. I overheard her through the half-open door. "He's charming, honey. But photography is such an unstable career. Have you thought about the long term?" That was 3 years ago. And in those 3 years, nothing changed. Not when I published in National Geographic. Not when the Smithsonian licensed my work. Not when I won awards at international photography competitions. To Richard, I was still the photographer. To Patricia, I was still the unstable career choice her daughter had made. Sunday dinners at their house became a ritual of subtle humiliation. Richard would ask about my hobby while discussing his latest real estate deal. Patricia would admire my photographs while suggesting I think about something more stable before Maya and I started a family. "Children are expensive," Richard said once, looking directly at me. "A man needs to provide more than Instagram likes." I never told Maya the worst of it. Never mentioned the comment Patricia made at Christmas about how Maya could have married Thomas, some orthopedic surgeon from their country club. Never told her about the time Richard pulled me aside and asked if I'd ever considered a desk job with benefits. She loved her parents. Despite their flaws. Despite their snobbery. And I didn't want to force her to choose sides. So I smiled. Brought the expensive wine. Complimented Patricia's cooking. Shook Richard's hand. And counted the hours until we could leave. But 6 months ago, something changed. Patricia stopped being subtly dismissive and started being actively hostile. The comments got sharper. The suggestions became demands. And I started noticing things. Small things. The kind of things you notice when you've trained yourself to observe. Like how people at their country club started treating me differently. Asking if I was feeling better when I'd never been sick. Giving Maya sympathetic looks when they thought I wasn't watching. Like how Patricia's friends would whisper when I entered a room. How they'd fall silent when I approached. Like how Maya started asking me questions that seemed to come from nowhere. "How much are you drinking when I'm at work?" she asked one evening. "Have you been feeling stressed?" I didn't drink. Not beyond an occasional beer with dinner. But suddenly everyone was worried about my drinking. That's when I found the business card in my jacket pocket. Marcus Webb, Private Investigations. I'd never met the man. Never heard his name. But someone had planted his card in my jacket for me to find. I called the number. A secretary answered. "Webb Investigations. Who hired you to follow me?" I asked. She hung up. But I'd heard something in the background. A voice I recognized. Patricia's voice. She was there, in that office, at that exact moment. And that's when I understood. This wasn't just disapproval anymore. This was something else. Something calculated. Something I needed to document before it went any further. Because that's what I do. I don't react. I don't confront. I document first. And then I act. 2 weeks later, Patricia announced she was having a special birthday dinner. Small and intimate. Just family. She insisted I attend. "It wouldn't be complete without you," she said, her smile too bright. Too eager. Maya was thrilled. "See? She's trying. She really wants you there." But I'd spent years photographing predators in the wild. And I knew that look. The way a predator goes still before it strikes. The way it focuses all its attention on its prey. Patricia had that look when she invited me. The night of the dinner, I arrived with Maya. Brought another expensive bottle of wine. Wore the button-down shirt Patricia preferred. Played the part of the grateful son-in-law. Richard barely acknowledged me. Just a grunt and a nod before returning to his phone. Same as always. Patricia was different. Overly cheerful. Overly attentive. She hugged me at the door. Told me how wonderful it was to see me. How glad she was that I could make it. My instinct screamed that something was wrong. After the main course, Patricia disappeared into the kitchen. Said she'd made her famous sangria for dessert. I offered to help carry glasses. That's when I saw it. She had 2 glasses separate from the others. As I entered the kitchen, she quickly added something from a small vial into one of them. Not a garnish. Not a flavor enhancer. Something colorless. Odorless. Something she tucked back into her pocket the moment she heard my footsteps. "Oh, Adrian, I've got this," she said, too brightly. Her voice had that same false cheerfulness from earlier. "This one's for you. Special recipe. Made it just for my favorite son-in-law." My throat tightened. The glass had a barely perceptible film on the surface. Catching the kitchen light. The kind of detail you'd miss unless you'd spent years training your eye to see what others couldn't. "Let me help you carry these," I said, taking both glasses she'd prepared. In the dining room, Richard was still absorbed in his phone. Barely looked up when I approached his seat. "Sangria, sir," I said, placing the tampered glass in front of him. He grunted. Took a long drink without looking at it. I carried the other glass, the clean one, to my own seat. Sat down. Held it. But didn't drink. Patricia watched me from across the table. Smiled. Relaxed slightly when she saw me holding what she thought was the drugged glass. She thought she'd won. I checked my watch. Started counting. 42 minutes later, Richard stood up abruptly. His face had gone gray. Sweat beaded on his forehead. "I don't feel," he started to say. Then his legs gave out. He crashed into the table. Crystal glasses shattered. Expensive china scattered across the hardwood floor. Maya screamed. Patricia's brother jumped up to help. And Patricia. Patricia looked at me across the chaos. Saw me sitting there calmly. The untouched glass still in my hand. Our eyes met. In that moment, she knew. She knew what I'd done. She knew that I knew what she'd tried to do. Her face went from concern to horrified in the span of a heartbeat. "Someone call an ambulance." Maya was shouting, kneeling beside her father. The next 20 minutes were chaos. Paramedics arrived. They loaded Richard onto a gurney. Maya went with him in the ambulance. Patricia stayed behind with the remaining guests, trying to explain, trying to maintain composure. But her hands were shaking. Because she knew. And she knew that I knew. I quietly pocketed the untouched glass meant for me. Wrapped it carefully in a napkin. Slipped it into my jacket pocket when no one was looking. Then I ate my chocolate cake and waited for everyone to leave. When Maya texted me from the hospital, "Dad's stable, they're running tests," I drove home alone. Went straight to my studio. Set up my macro photography equipment. The same rig I used to photograph coral polyps and microscopic ocean life. Under 40 times magnification, I could see everything. The crystalline structure of whatever Patricia had added to that drink. The way it caught the light. The way it formed geometric patterns that I recognized from my conservation work. I'd photographed polluted water samples before. Documented chemical runoff in rivers. This structure looked similar. But not quite the same. I took 50 photographs from different angles, different lighting, different magnifications. Then I called someone who could tell me exactly what I was looking at. Her name was Dr. Sarah Chen. We'd worked together on a documentary about ocean pollution. She was a chemist who specialized in identifying contaminants in water samples. Sarah, I need you to look at something, I said. Can you identify a substance from a photograph? Depends on the resolution. Send it over. I emailed her the clearest shots. Waited. 20 minutes later, my phone rang. Adrian, Sarah's voice was tight. Where did you get this? What is it? This is Rohypnol. A sedative. And based on the concentration you photographed, there's enough in that sample to knock out someone your size for 6 to 8 hours. Where did you get this? I closed my eyes. My mother-in-law's special cocktail. Silence on the line. Then, Adrian, this is serious. This isn't just drugging someone. This is. I know what it is, I said quietly. Can you write up a report? Official. Something that would hold up if I needed it to. Yes. But you need to go to the police. Not yet. First, I need to understand what she was planning. Because this wasn't random. This was deliberate. And I need to know why. I spent that night researching. Started with the obvious, Patricia's medical records. They weren't public, but I had ways of finding information. Years of documentary work had taught me how to dig. How to find the threads that connected things. What I found made my stomach turn. Patricia had prescriptions from 3 different doctors. All for anti-anxiety medications. All filled at different pharmacies. The dates showed she'd been stockpiling for months. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the private investigator. I'd called Marcus Webb's office once before. Got hung up on. This time, I didn't call. I went there in person. Set up surveillance across the street using the same wildlife tracking cameras I used for nature photography. Motion activated. Night vision. Weatherproof. I spent 3 days watching that office. On day 3, Patricia showed up. Designer handbag. Sunglasses. Looking around nervously before entering. I had my telephoto lens ready. 600 millimeters. Same lens I use for photographing eagles and hawks from a distance. Got her face perfectly. Got her entering the building. Got her leaving 20 minutes later. But more importantly, I got audio. See, I'd placed my interview equipment near the window of Webb's office. The same directional microphone I use for nature documentaries. It picks up sounds from hundreds of feet away. And Marcus Webb liked to leave his window open. I heard everything. Do you have the photographs? Patricia's voice came through clearly. Got him entering 3 different bars last week, Marcus Webb replied. He doesn't drink at bars. He barely drinks at all. Mrs. Winters, you hired me to document him drinking. I'm documenting him entering establishments where drinking occurs. That's what you're paying me for. Fine. Whatever. I need this done before my birthday party. Phase 2 happens then. Phase 2. What the hell was Phase 2? I kept listening. After the party, Patricia continued, after he humiliates himself in front of everyone, Maya will have no choice but to see him for what he really is. By Christmas, she'll file for divorce. Just like with Richard's first wife. I almost dropped the headphones. Richard's first wife? I knew Richard had been married before Maya's mother. But I'd never heard details. Never thought to ask. Patricia kept talking. Linda was the same way. Common. Unsuitable. Took me 6 months to get rid of her, but I managed. One incident at the right event, and Richard saw the truth. And if the photographer doesn't drink at the party? Webb asked. He won't have a choice. I'll make sure of it. I sat in my car for a long time after that recording ended, processing what I'd just heard. Patricia hadn't just tried to drug me once. She'd done this before. To Richard's first wife. And she'd succeeded. That night, I started researching Linda Winters. Or Linda Harrison, as she was now called. She'd taken back her maiden name after the divorce. It took me 3 hours to find her. She lived in Connecticut. Kept a low profile. Minimal social media presence. But when I searched newspaper archives, I found the story. From 20 years ago. Banker's wife's drunken outburst at charity gala. The article described Linda Winters being forcibly removed from a fundraising event after she became belligerent and disoriented. Witnesses reported she'd been drinking heavily. The incident was humiliating enough that Richard Winters filed for divorce within 3 months. I read the article 5 times. Looking for details. Looking for anything that seemed off. Then I saw it. In the 3rd paragraph. A single sentence, Mrs. Winters maintained she'd only had 1 glass of champagne and suspected she'd been drugged, but no evidence supported her claim. She'd tried to tell people. Tried to say she'd been drugged. But no one believed her. And Patricia had gotten away with it. I picked up my phone. Dialed the number I'd found for Linda Harrison. It rang 4 times. I almost hung up. Then a woman answered. Hello? Mrs. Harrison? My name is Adrian Cole. I'm married to Richard Winter's daughter. A long pause. Is this about Patricia? The way she said the name. Like it tasted bitter. Yes, I said. She tried to drug me at a dinner party. The silence stretched so long I thought she'd hung up. Then, 20 years. I've been waiting 20 years for someone to believe me. We agreed to meet the next day. A diner in Fairfield, Connecticut. Neutral territory. I told Maya I had a photography assignment. Hated lying to her. But I needed to understand the full picture before I showed her what her mother really was. Linda Harrison was waiting in a booth when I arrived. Early 60s. Elegant. The kind of woman who carried herself with dignity despite whatever she'd been through. She'd brought a box with her. Set it on the table between us. I saved everything, she said quietly. Everyone told me to let it go. To move on. But I knew. I knew someday someone would need to see the truth. She opened the box. Inside were hospital records from 20 years ago. Police reports. Photographs from the charity gala showing her disoriented, being helped out of the venue by security. And at the bottom of the box, wrapped in a plastic bag, was a champagne glass. I kept it, Linda said. The glass from that night. I was so sure I'd been drugged. But the police wouldn't test it. Said it was just a wealthy woman making excuses for bad behavior. I picked up the bag carefully. Would you let me have this tested now? That's why I saved it. Linda told me everything. How she'd met Richard. How Patricia had seemed friendly at first. How that friendliness turned to subtle hostility once they were married. I was a plumber's daughter, Linda said. Working class. Patricia thought I was beneath Richard. Beneath their social standing. She said the same thing about me, I replied. Called me common. She told Richard the first had a drinking problem. Started planting that story months before the gala. Just like she did with you. Then at the gala, she handed me a champagne toast. Said it was to welcome me to the family. 30 minutes later, I couldn't stand. What happened after? Richard chose his reputation over the truth. He always will. Patricia made sure everyone in the Hamptons knew I'd humiliated him. Made sure the story spread. By the time I tried to defend myself, no one believed me. I looked at the evidence spread across the diner table. 20 years of carrying this burden. 20 years of being called a liar. I'm going to stop her, I said. But I need to ask you something. If I expose what she did, to both of us, it's going to destroy her reputation. Her social standing. Everything she values. Are you prepared for that? Linda's eyes filled with tears. I've been prepared for 20 years. I took the champagne glass to Sarah Chen. Asked her to test it alongside the residue from my own glass. Wanted to see if there was a pattern. 3 days later, she called me with the results. Same compound. Same dosage. Adrian, whoever did this has done it before. This is practiced. Refined. This person knew exactly what they were doing. Now I had proof. Not just of what Patricia tried to do to me. But what she'd done before. What she'd gotten away with. But proof wasn't enough. Patricia was good at manipulating narratives. Good at playing the concerned mother-in-law. Good at making people believe her version of events. If I confronted her privately, she'd deny everything. If I showed Maya the evidence, Patricia would claim I'd fabricated it. That I was paranoid. Unstable. Exactly the narrative she'd been building for months. No. If I was going to do this, I needed to do it right. I needed to document everything. Build a case so airtight that denial would be impossible. I needed to turn Patricia's own weapon against her. So I went back to what I do best. I started documenting. I placed my wildlife tracking cameras around the Winters estate. Motion activated. Night vision. The same equipment I'd used to photograph nocturnal animals in their natural habitat. Mounted them in trees. Behind hedges. Anywhere with a clear view of the house and gardens. Then I waited. On the third night of surveillance, I captured gold. Patricia met with Marcus Webb in her garden. Late evening. They thought they were alone. Thought no one could hear them. But my cameras caught everything. Video and audio. The gala is in 2 weeks, Patricia said. I'll drug him again. This time in front of 80 guests. People who matter. Investors. Country club members. By the time he wakes up, his reputation will be destroyed. Maya will have no choice. What if he switches the glasses again? Webb asked. Patricia laughed. Actually laughed. He won't. I'll make sure of it. I'll prepare multiple drinks. Watch which one he takes. There's no escaping this time. I sat in my car watching the footage replay on my laptop. She was planning to do it again. At her annual charity gala. In front of the entire Hampton social scene. She was going to humiliate me publicly. Destroy my reputation. Force Maya to divorce me. Just like she'd done to Linda 20 years ago. The difference was, this time I knew it was coming. And this time, I had cameras recording everything. Quick question before we continue. Comment below if you think I should have confronted Patricia privately first, or if going public was the right move. Because what I did next would change everything. Over the next 2 weeks, I built my case. Compiled every piece of evidence. Every recording. Every photograph. Every witness statement. I reached out to Linda's old friends from 20 years ago. Found 3 people who remembered that night at the gala. Who remembered Linda insisting she'd only had 1 drink. Who remembered Patricia being the one who'd handed her that champagne toast. I contacted a colleague who did forensic photography for the NYPD. Showed him my macro shots of the drug residue. Asked him to verify them. He confirmed everything. Even offered to testify if needed. I organized it all into a timeline. A visual story. The kind of documentary narrative I'd built my career on. Evidence building on evidence. A case that couldn't be denied. And then I prepared for Patricia's gala. She'd invited Maya and me personally. Hand-delivered the invitation. Heavy cardstock with embossed gold lettering. The kind that screamed money and status. At the bottom, Patricia had written a personal note, looking forward to seeing you there. I've prepared something special. She actually wrote that. Taunted me in writing. Because she was so confident. So sure she'd win. Maya was excited. Mom's really trying, Adrian. This invitation, the personal note, she wants you there. I smiled. Kissed my wife. Told her I was looking forward to it. But what I was really looking forward to was watching Patricia's world collapse. I spent the week before the gala setting up. Hired a professional videographer. Told him I wanted to document the event for a potential project about Hampton's charity culture. He didn't ask questions. Just agreed to film everything. I coordinated with Linda. Asked if she was ready to face Patricia after 20 years. She said she'd been ready since the day Richard divorced her. I tested my equipment. Made sure every camera worked. Every microphone. Every backup system. This was going to be the most important documentation of my career. I couldn't afford technical failures. The night before the gala, Patricia called me. First time she'd ever called my cell phone directly. Adrian, her voice was warm. Friendly. I wanted to personally tell you how glad I am you'll be attending tomorrow. I've prepared something very special for you. I could hear the smile in her voice. The satisfaction. She thought she was about to win. That's very thoughtful, Patricia, I said. I'm looking forward to it. Oh, I think you'll find it quite memorable. We hung up. I sat in my studio looking at the evidence spread across my desk. The glass. The test results. The recordings. 20 years of Linda's suffering. Months of Patricia's manipulation. Tomorrow, it all ended. The Hamptons Country Club glittered like something from a movie. Crystal chandeliers. Designer gowns. The smell of expensive perfume and older money. 80 guests in formal attire, champagne flowing, orchestra playing Vivaldi in the background. Maya looked beautiful. Happy. Excited to be here with her mother's approval finally seeming real. I hated that I was about to destroy that happiness. But better a hard truth than a comfortable lie. Patricia held court in the center of the ballroom. The perfect hostess. Greeting guests. Laughing. Playing her role flawlessly. Richard was there too. Recovered from his food poisoning at the birthday dinner. That was the official story. Food poisoning. Not drugging. Because admitting what really happened would have raised too many questions. My videographer was in position. Cameras hidden throughout the venue. Everything ready. Patricia spotted me across the room. Her smile widened. She excused herself from her conversation and made her way over. Adrian. She embraced me. Fake warmth radiating from every gesture. I'm so glad you could make it. Come with me. I have your drink ready. She led me to a side table where several cocktails waited. But I noticed something. She wasn't reaching for one immediately. She was watching. Waiting to see which glass I'd naturally gravitate toward. Webb was right. She'd prepared multiple drinks. Was planning to drug whichever one I chose. This one, she said, finally selecting a glass. Special recipe. Just for you. The same words from the birthday dinner. The same tremor in her hands. The same film on the surface of the liquid catching the light. I took the glass. Looked at it. Looked at her. You really shouldn't have gone to all this trouble, I said. Oh, it's no trouble at all. Her smile was victorious. In fact, I've been looking forward to this for months. She leaned close. Whispered so only I could hear. This time, there's no switching glasses. I made sure of it. Then she walked away. Confident. Satisfied. Certain she'd won. I set the untouched drink down on a nearby table. Walked to the front of the ballroom where a small stage had been set up for speeches and announcements. Tapped the microphone. The sound echoed through the space. Conversations died. Heads turned. Patricia's face changed. Confusion. Then alarm. "Thank you all for coming tonight," I said into the microphone. My voice steady. "Come. Before dinner is served, I'd like to share something with you. I'm a documentary photographer. And over the past few months, I've been working on a project about the price of social climbing." Patricia stood frozen across the room. I could see her calculating. Looking for exits. Looking at Richard. "I'd like to show you what I've documented." A screen descended from the ceiling. One of those projection screens the country club used for presentations and slideshows. The lights dimmed. The first image appeared. Microscopic photography. Crystalline structures magnified 40 times. Beautiful in a terrible way. "This is Rohypnol," I said. My voice narrating over the image like one of my nature documentaries. A sedative. This particular sample contained enough to render someone unconscious for 6 to 8 hours. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. "This is what my mother-in-law put in my drink 3 weeks ago." The murmurs became gasps. The next image. Surveillance footage from Patricia's birthday dinner. Timestamp in the corner. Patricia in her kitchen, adding something from a small vial to a cocktail glass. Crystal clear. Undeniable. This is Patricia Winters, preparing that drink. She didn't know I had cameras in the house. Patricia tried to speak. Tried to object. But her voice wouldn't work. The next series of images. Patricia meeting with Marcus Webb. Audio playing over the footage. "Do you have the photographs?" Got him entering 3 different bars last week. He doesn't drink at bars. He barely drinks at all. The room was completely silent now. 80 people watching. Listening. Witnessing. Richard's face had gone gray. He was finally understanding. Finally connecting the pieces. Then the footage from tonight. Captured by my hidden cameras. Patricia in the country club kitchen 90 minutes ago. Adding powder to a cocktail glass. The same glass she just handed me. This was filmed tonight. 1 hour ago. That drink is sitting on table 7. Anyone who doubts this is welcome to have it tested. Someone in the crowd, a man I didn't know, stood up. "This is outrageous. You're making serious accusations." "I am," I agreed. "And I have more." The lights came up slightly. And Linda Harrison walked into the ballroom. She'd aged 20 years since the photographs from the gala scandal. But her face was unmistakable to anyone who'd been part of Hampton society back then. Patricia made a sound. Not quite a gasp. Not quite a scream. Something in between. "This is Linda Harrison," I said. Formerly Linda Winters. Richard's first wife. 20 years ago, at a charity gala not unlike this one, Patricia drugged her. The incident destroyed Linda's reputation and her marriage. On the screen, new images appeared. Linda's hospital records from 20 years ago. Showing sedatives in her bloodstream. Police reports she'd filed that were dismissed. Photos from that night showing her disoriented and confused. And then, the champagne glass. Preserved for 2 decades. Test results from last week showing the same drug. The same dosage. The same pattern. "Patricia Winters has done this before," I said. "She did it to Linda 20 years ago. She tried to do it to me 3 weeks ago. And she tried to do it again tonight. All to remove people she deemed unworthy of her family. All to maintain her social standing." The room erupted. People talking over each other. Some standing. Some moving toward the exits. Patricia didn't cry. Didn't apologize. Instead, she turned on Maya. "You were supposed to marry Senator Bradford's son," she screamed. Her voice shrill. Desperate. "You were supposed to marry someone important. Instead you chose a photographer who takes pictures of fish. I built this family's reputation and you were destroying it." The mask had completely fallen. 80 witnesses watched Patricia Winters reveal exactly who she was. Maya stood frozen. Tears streaming down her face. Looking at her mother like she was seeing a stranger. A man approached from the crowd. Late 50s. Distinguished. I recognized him from the guest list. District Attorney James Morrison. "Mrs. Winters," he said quietly. "I witnessed you hand that drink to Mr. Cole personally. Combined with this documentary evidence, I have probable cause for arrest." Patricia tried to run. Actually ran for the exit in her designer heels and floor-length gown. Made it maybe 10 feet before security stopped her. Police had been waiting outside. I'd arranged that too. Made sure they'd be ready if things went the way I expected. The handcuffs looked obscene against her diamond bracelet. "You can't do this," Patricia shouted as they led her toward the door. "Do you know who I am?" "Yes, ma'am," the officer replied. We know exactly who you are. She looked back at me one final time as they took her away. No more fake smiles. No more society mask. Just raw hatred. But it didn't matter anymore. Because 80 witnesses had seen the truth. And that truth was already spreading through every country club, every social circle, every corner of the world she'd valued more than her own daughter's happiness. The gala dissolved into chaos after that. Guests leaving. Conversations buzzing. Phone cameras recording. The scandal of the decade unfolding in real time. I found Maya outside. She was sitting on a bench in the garden. Alone. Crying. I sat down beside her. Didn't speak. Just let her process. Finally, she looked at me. How long have you known? 3 weeks. Since the birthday dinner. Why didn't you tell me? Because she would have convinced you I was lying. You needed to see it. Everyone needed to see it. My whole childhood, Maya whispered. Every boyfriend I ever had. Every friend who drifted away. Was that all her? I took her hand. I don't know. But we'll figure it out. Together. Richard found us 20 minutes later. He looked like he'd aged a decade in the past hour. Linda was telling the truth, he said. Not a question. A statement. An admission. Yes, I replied. I chose my reputation over her. Over the truth. He looked at Maya. At me. I'm sorry. To both of you. For not seeing what Patricia was. For not believing Linda. For everything. It wasn't enough. Not even close. But it was a start. We went home that night. Maya and I left the chaos behind. Sat in our apartment in silence. The next morning, her mother called from jail. Maya stared at the screen. Let it ring. And ring. And ring. When it finally stopped, she blocked the number. Tell me about Linda, she said quietly. Tell me everything my mother destroyed. Because I need to know what I'm really mourning. So I told her. Everything. About Linda's lost marriage. Lost reputation. 20 years of carrying the burden of a truth no one believed. I want to meet her, Maya said. I want to apologize. Even though it wasn't my fault, I want her to know I'm sorry. We met Linda for lunch the following week. At that same diner in Fairfield. The three of us sitting in a booth that felt both awkward and necessary. You look like your father, Linda said to Maya. But you have Patricia's eyes. Maya flinched at the comparison. That's not an insult, Linda added quickly. Your mother's eyes were beautiful. Before they became cold. They talked for 2 hours. About Patricia. About Richard. About the cost of social climbing and the price of reputation. About learning to move forward from betrayal. When we left, Linda hugged Maya. You're not responsible for your mother's choices. Don't let her poison your life the way she tried to poison mine. Patricia's trial moved quickly. The evidence was overwhelming. Video. Audio. Witness testimony. Chemical analysis. Even the 80 guests who'd watched it all unfold in real time. Her lawyer tried to claim I'd manipulated the footage. That I'd fabricated evidence. But then the prosecutor asked, did Mr. Cole fabricate the 80 witnesses who saw your client hand him that drink? Did he fabricate the drug that was found in that glass? Did he fabricate the hospital records from 20 years ago? The lawyer had no answer. Patricia was offered a plea deal. 18 months in prison. 5 years probation. Mandatory psychological treatment. Restitution to Linda for damages from 20 years ago. She accepted. The alternative was going to trial and potentially facing 8 to 10 years. Maya and I attended the sentencing hearing. Sat in the back of the courtroom. Patricia never looked at us. Never turned around. The judge asked if she had anything to say. Patricia stood. I was trying to protect my family. That's not an apology, the judge replied. I know, Patricia said. And sat back down. As they led her away to begin her sentence, I felt something shift inside me. Not satisfaction exactly. Not revenge. Just the quiet knowledge that justice had been served. Linda filed her civil suit the following month. Seeking damages for the 20 years of destroyed reputation. The lost opportunities. The trauma of being called a liar when she'd been telling the truth. Patricia's assets were frozen. Her country club membership revoked. Her social standing obliterated. Richard paid Linda's settlement out of his own accounts. Didn't fight it. Didn't argue. Just wrote the check and apologized again. 6 months after the gala, Maya and I moved to Oregon. Took jobs with a marine conservation organization on the coast. Fresh start. Clean air. Distance from the Hamptons and everything that had happened there. Richard surprised us. He funded my ocean pollution documentary as an apology. 5-year grant. $500,000. Enough to fully produce the project I'd been dreaming about for years. I can't undo what Patricia did, he said when he handed me the contract. But I can support what you do. What you are. And I'm sorry it took me so long to see it. Maya started therapy. Twice a week at first. Then once a week. Processing the manipulation. The lies. The mother she thought she'd known versus the woman who'd actually raised her. Some days were harder than others. Some days she'd come home from her sessions and just hold me and cry. Other days she'd talk about it. About learning to separate her mother's actions from her own identity. Linda became an unexpected friend. She'd visit us in Oregon occasionally. Take walks on the beach with Maya. Share stories about surviving betrayal and learning to trust again. Your mother didn't break you, Linda told Maya once. She tried. But she failed. That's what matters. Richard learned to be a better father. Slowly. Awkwardly. But genuinely. He'd call to ask about my work. Actually listen. Actually remember the details. Started introducing me as his son-in-law instead of the photographer. It wasn't forgiveness. Not completely. But it was acknowledgement. Growth. Change. 2 years after the gala, my ocean pollution documentary premiered at Sundance. The theater was packed. Critics called it visually stunning and urgently important. Richard was there. Front row. Clapping louder than anyone when I won the audience award. He leaned over and whispered, "I'm proud of you, son." First time he'd ever called me that. During my acceptance speech, I talked about seeing what others miss. About documenting truth even when it's uncomfortable. About how photography isn't just about pretty pictures, it's about bearing witness. The speech wasn't really about ocean pollution. Everyone in that room knew what I was actually talking about. The documentary about Patricia that had never been released publicly. The investigation that had exposed her. After the screening, a woman approached me. Late 30s. Nervous. "Mr. Cole? I need to talk to you about something. About your mother-in-law." My stomach dropped. What about her? I think she tried to do the same thing to me. 3 years ago. At a fundraiser in Boston. I was dating her nephew. She gave me a drink. I woke up 12 hours later in a hospital. She said I'd been drunk. I lost my job. My relationship. Everything. I gave her Linda's contact information. Told her about the civil suit. About the evidence we'd compiled. About how she wasn't alone. Over the next 6 months, 4 more women came forward. 4 more victims of Patricia's schemes. 4 more lives she tried to destroy to maintain her vision of acceptable social standing. Linda helped coordinate their cases. Became an advocate for them. Found purpose in her pain. Patricia's sentence was extended. Not by much. But enough. And her reputation, the thing she'd valued above everything, was completely destroyed. Permanently. 3 years after the gala, Maya and I had a daughter. We named her Elena. After Maya's grandmother. Not Patricia's mother. The other grandmother. The one who'd been kind. Richard was surprisingly involved. Wanted to be present. Wanted to do better as a grandfather than he'd done as a father. We let him. With boundaries. With supervision. But we let him try. Patricia sent a letter from prison when Elena was born. Maya stared at it for 10 minutes before opening it. Inside was a single sentence, "Prison is beneath our family. Don't bring my granddaughter to visit. It would be inappropriate." No congratulations. No acknowledgement of the baby. Just concern about appearances. Even now. Even after everything. Maya read it once. Then burned it in our fireplace. "She'll never meet Elena," Maya said. "Not in prison. Not after she's released. Never." "Are you sure?" "I'm sure. Because I'm not letting her poison another generation." 6 months ago, Patricia was released on parole. 18 months served. Good behavior. Mandatory counseling completed. She didn't contact us. Didn't try to reach out. According to Richard, she moved to Florida. Started over somewhere no one knew her history. I received an invitation to her parole hearing before her release. The board wanted a victim impact statement. I wrote one sentence: "Patricia Winters tried to destroy my life to protect her social status. She failed. I have no opinion on her parole." I didn't attend the hearing. I was in the Galapagos with Elena. Teaching my 3-year-old daughter how to hold a camera. Showing her how to frame a shot. How to see the world through a lens. "Why do we take pictures, Daddy?" she asked. "To remember the truth," I said. "To show people what's real." Maya joined us later that afternoon. Found us on the beach, Elena pointing her little camera at hermit crabs. "Did you hear?" Maya asked. "They denied her parole." I looked up. I didn't ask. "Good," she said. Neither did I. She sat down beside us. Watched our daughter discover the world through a viewfinder. Learning to see. Learning to document. Learning that truth matters more than appearance. "Do you ever regret it?" Maya asked quietly. "Exposing her publicly like that?" I thought about it. About the gala. About 80 witnesses. About Linda's vindication after 20 years. No, I said. Because she would have kept doing it. To us. To others. Someone had to stop her. You could have just left. Divorced me. Walked away from all of it. I could have, I agreed. But I didn't marry you to abandon you when things got hard. I married you because I love you. And sometimes love means protecting people from the things they can't see. Elena ran back to us, camera bouncing around her neck. I got the perfect shot. She showed us the screen. A slightly blurry hermit crab. Off-center. Terrible composition. It's beautiful, Maya said. And meant it. That night, lying in bed in our rental, I thought about Patricia. About how she'd valued reputation over truth. Status over family. Appearance over reality. She'd tried to destroy me with a spiked drink. I destroyed her with a camera and the patience to wait for the perfect shot. 45 minutes. That's all it took for her plan to fall apart. Turns out, the best revenge isn't served cold. It's served documented, verified, and projected on a screen in front of 80 witnesses. Patricia thought she could control the narrative. Control who people believed. Control her daughter's entire life. But she forgot something important. Photographers don't just take pictures. We document truth. We see what others miss. We wait for the perfect moment. And when it comes, we capture it forever. She tried to erase me from her daughter's life. Instead, I erased her from her own. And somewhere in Florida, starting over with a new name in a place where no one knows her history, Patricia Winters is learning what I've always known. You can't manipulate what's been documented. You can't lie away the truth once enough people have seen it. My name is Adrian Cole. I'm 35 years old. Documentary photographer. Husband. Father. And I'm the man who turned a spiked drink into the most important exposure of my career. If this story hit different, smash that like button. Subscribe for more stories about people who thought they could manipulate the truth and learn the hard way. Comment below, have you ever caught someone in a lie using your professional skills? What's your superpower?